Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of We Need to Talk. I'm your host, Malynda, joined by my co host, Karmel.
What is up?
And today in studio, we have my wonderful husband who's joining us for the conversation today. Mr.
Thanks
John
for that
Volk.
wonderful call out.
We've done this intro probably like 80 times at this point. Technical issues, but it's okay. That's what happens when you're trying to do a podcast.
They wouldn't have known if you didn't call it out.
It's okay. I gotta be honest and vulnerable.
Yeah,
It's this
this
new
is her
thing I'm
real-
trying
yeah.
out.
Speaking her truth.
Being humble.
Speaking my truth.
Speaking my truth.
How were your weekends? Weekend. 'Cause,
Weekend, yeah.
Yeah. How was your weekend?
Yeah. But when does the week start?
We're not having this conversation. John and I have this conversation all the time, and he's convinced that the week starts on Monday, and I said, no, honey, the week starts on Sunday.
But it's a
Carmel.
weekend.
No, but
Well, here, okay. So let's look at the 2 days, sun and mun, right? The day starts with the sun, so the week starts with the sun,
I
What?
don't.
right? Sunday, that's the sun, and then the
Come on.
Monday
What's
is the
Tuesday?
moon. I have no idea. It's named after
It doesn't matter.
It's named
It's in
after
the middle of the
yeah.
week.
Who cares? Tuesday.
It's the second day of the
Don't talk about
week.
Tuesday.
no.
It's the week starts on Sunday.
yeah.
The
it
Lord
starts
rested.
on Saturday.
But
Yes.
Yes, that is the Sabbath.
What did
Sabbath.
you grew up in Catholic school? What did they teach you?
they taught us nothing. Don't have sex.
Okay.
Oh my God!
Go to
you're killing me.
confession.
Got that.
But they didn't teach you which day the Lord rested on.
They taught us about original sin.
Mm.
Okay, this is
Okay.
getting deeper than I
Okay.
want it to, and it's
Yep.
not the
move
conversation
on.
that we're here to have. But the week starts on Sunday. Anyway, so I really want to have this conversation because this kind of sparked in my mind when John and I were watching recently Bill Burr's Paper Tiger and Dave Chappelle's Sticks and Stones on Netflix. Which, if you haven't seen either of them, watch both of them
Great.
because there's good material in
Yes.
both.
Yes.
But comedians, I've noticed, they they tend to poke fun at everybody, which I love because nobody is safe.
It's comedy.
It's comedy.
Right.
I
No one
mean,
should be safe.
Nobody should be safe. I mean, nowadays everybody's offended by everything, but that's also another podcast, another conversation. But what I notice is in a lot of comedy, they focus on stereotypes.
Yeah.
And I think the reason that we laugh at them is because there's truth behind stereotypes.
100%.
And I want to talk about that because I think when you think of a stereotype, you think of the negative aspects of it. Because obviously there are negative stereotypes. You know, there's the stereotype of like how African Americans are and how the media portrays, you know, how Jewish people are, Arabs and Muslims are. There's negative stereotypes around them that, you know, especially after 9/11, people just have this thought that that's how they all are.
Yeah.
But
I
white
wanna-
people.
we're gonna have a deep conversation about stereotypes of white people.
White Jesus.
It's not
Kidding.
real.
Right?
It's not real.
Not real.
We'll start there. But I want to talk a little bit about the truth about stereotypes and why we're kind of afraid to embrace them. Because I don't think there's anything wrong with some of those things.
I mean, like, one of the long-standing ones for black folks is that we're late to everything, right? I'm a very punctual person. I mean, we all are late at times, but I'm
Everybody's late.
Everyone's late, but like, I've never understood why black folks have been traditionally known as being late.
Well, you know what?
I've never gotten that.
I gotta say, for 400 years, when you're forced to work on time,
Okay.
I think we're allowed to show up a little late if we
Okay.
want to.
I'm glad you said that because that's kind of what I felt like when you mentioned it. I mean, that's the one that bugs me the most, and I feel like, yeah, damn it, I'm gonna be late now. I don't care. Like I was forced to work. Now I'm gonna be late. Like,
Speaking my truth.
Could you imagine though if somebody said that? I wish somebody would say that to their boss. You are always late. It's like, yes, well, my ancestors. And just could you imagine? Could you imagine?
I get to be late now.
But what are some other stereotypes about African American people?
Good at sports.
But there's truth behind
There
that.
is a lot of truth behind that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
So
And
okay,
there's a science even behind it with how African American, specifically males, are built.
so it's funny because I remember when Johnny the Greek or Jimmy the Greek back way. I think I was a kid when this happened. I didn't remember it happened, but I remember he got fired for talking about how blacks their DNA. I think you guys like an extra 2 muscles. And he was joking, but it's like we have extra muscles in our legs that's causing them to run faster and jump higher. And he got fired for it. But I'm like, wait a minute, there is factual DNA to
Right.
suggest that like West Africans are built differently and are faster than most other ethnicities. So I don't understand why we would get upset with that. But
Honestly, because it treads into dangerous waters that are eugenics, that were, I
True.
mean,
True.
honestly, in the last century, there's even you could you don't have to scratch too deeply to dig up some like faux scientific studies on how people are like actually just formed differently. There's some great books about it. Like it's not even people from Africa. It's the Irish. Like looking at like, oh, this is how these Irish people's skulls were were malformed or just formed differently, and like so this means that they're dumber in X, Y, and Z. So like that type of, I get that like that's something that's arguably a positive. Like, wow, you are more athletic. You can do you don't get injured as much. You can jump higher. You can run
Right,
faster. This is
right,
great.
right,
But like,
right.
it's if it's one thing, then like, what about the other? Are
Flip
you
side,
opening
sure.
a door to something that is an awful bit of
Assumption
fake
or
science? Yeah.
no,
Yeah,
for sure,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
I think the other thing that I find interesting is that I think we're all kind of formulaic in a sense. Like, I don't know if John loves him some Black Twitter, but there was this one thing on Black Twitter that was trending. It was like, you grew up Black when. And it was Black people from all around the world that had similar upbringings, and we have no connection to each other. So I almost feel like some of these things, I don't know if it's because, we see it in the media or we see it on television or whatever, or it could just honestly be a part of our DNA. That are certain things with certain cultures and certain races that are just part of us.
Yeah, I mean, there's things we're privy to that because of our ethnicity that we just like, and that's okay. I think when it becomes a like caricature of that group, and then sometimes it's the person who doesn't have that same experience gets mad about it. Like, oh, I didn't grow
Right.
up like that, so why do you guys,
Right.
a blanket statement on all of us? But yeah, but a lot of us like the same thing. Okay, maybe
Right.
you're the one exception,
Right.
but of a
Right.
lot of
I mean, like, I think it's probably just stems from people saying, it's like, if I tell you, oh, look, I saw this great movie, Karmel, you wouldn't really like it. It's like, well, what are you talking about? It's like, well, I think I know enough of you that like you just don't like it.
Right.
Or if Malynda, like when she tells me to like empty the dishwasher or something, like she, from past experience, she's probably thinking like, I'm gonna have to remind this guy a handful of times before he does it. But do I remind him proactively? Because like if she does that to me, it's like, well, why didn't you give me a chance to do this? Like
Sure.
it's stepping over what it's not giving someone a fair shot at something. But on the it's assuming it's just it's not yeah it's assuming too much.
Right, but
Right.
but that's based on your experiences. It's like if you've experienced that from people, that you have no choice but to assume that this is what's happened to me.
But what if it's informed by what if I didn't grow up around black people,
Right,
right? Let's
right.
just say I didn't do that. I didn't know any or whatever. I see
Which you
TV or I
didn't.
see. I knew I knew so many black persons. No, but like, so if that's just if that's what was available to me, and then I move out here and it's like, and then I have that same thing, which is like in any other context, you wouldn't know if I, grew up around people or people of color or not. But like, if I say something to you that's like, well, this is, like what I generally think is like, but when is that wrong?
It's honestly, for example, if you threw a party and you black folks were coming, and the only thing you knew about black folks, man, I know they like Kool-Aid. And you had
Can
some,
you
and you
imagine?
had, but you and you and you're trying to
Right,
be
yeah.
so
Right, yeah,
considerate,
yeah.
like, oh, I know they like Kool-Aid.
Right.
Brought out some
What
Kool-Aid.
flavor?
What
Red.
right? You brought some red
So
Kool-Aid out,
funny. Oh
Now-
my gosh. You would be getting the look like.
right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like
well,
he
I
would-
don't. Do
and
they
he-
still sell Kool-Aid?
I don't know. That's a
Oh
good
sure.
question.
Oh yeah.
Really?
They sell packets of Kool-Aid out there. Yeah.
Really? It's
Sure.
still like in effect. I'm
I
surprised.
loved Kool-Aid.
So what's funny is
See, and I didn't drink Kool-Aid growing
Really?
up.
that's
No.
funny. And
like
as
a
a white
mound of
person,
sugar.
you drunk. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not Kool-Aid. It's sugar. It doesn't matter.
Right.
But yeah, you like Kool-Aid too. So it's funny because that becomes a black stereotype for
Right.
some reason. But it's actually socioeconomic. Like it's the
Right.
affordable drink we can
Oh,
drink.
that's a very good point.
What about
So-
those drinks in the little barrels? You know what I'm
Oh.
talking about? The like the
with
plastic.
the little
The plastic
cap-
tips,
Yeah, with the
Oh
little-
yeah, I was all
yeah.
about
Oh,
those. We
heck
had
yeah.
those for
Those
sure.
are dope.
You get those at Costco. You get like
were
you're
those
good
things
for the
called?
month.
Oh my
I don't remember
God.
what they're called, but I totally know.
I don't
what
think
you're
they had a
talking about.
name.
The plastic.
just
They
like-
probably didn't have
Yes.
a name. Just juice.
Right.
Right.
Plastic juice. Get your plastic juice on.
You want it cold or not? That's it.
Plastic juice.
Oh, that stuff was so good.
Oh my god! But see, we all had that experience. I
Yes,
love that.
yes.
I absolutely love that.
I don't know why those experiences become just black though.
Right.
That's the problem. And then you just associate that with black. And to our credit and discredit, we do hold on to some stereotypes and like blow them up.
And that's what I was gonna say. I feel like with a lot of races and cultures or whatever group you identify with, like it's okay for you to say that stuff. But
Yeah.
the minute anybody
Right.
else does, oh wait,
Oh,
what do you
yeah.
mean?
Yeah, wait, what?
Like black people be like, oh, I love me some fried chicken, and then let's say John, he's like, oh, black
Right.
people love fried chicken. You'd be like, what?
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 Exactly.
Yeah.
What do you mean only black people? Everybody loves fried chicken. So it's like we're able to accept stereotypes in a certain way until somebody else says it.
Yeah, and I don't like that. And I think we should be not so sensitive in that situation. Like, yeah, I do like fried chicken. And again, going back to the same scenario, if John had the Kool-Aid
Like
out,
Kool-Aid and
because he
fried
knows,
chicken.
and the fried chicken, because he's really trying to be
Right, yeah.
considerate, because he doesn't
And
know
I love you
accommodating,
guys.
a good host.
Right, he's just trying his heart out. Greens, right? Y'all like greens? Okay.
Oh my gosh.
A lot
Right.
of us will get upset about that because we think he's being condescending, he's stereotyping us,
Right.
but like that's all he knows. And again,
Right.
that could be from media, and that could be from us talking so much about it.
Right.
But he
Right.
didn't grow up around us. So
Right.
what else would he do?
Yeah.
I do want to know, and I mean, I feel like I should know, but I grew up eating fried chicken, obviously. But where the origin of connecting fried chicken with black people came from? Because I know, like, with greens and like chitlins and things like that goes all the way back to slavery times. I know that, but we didn't have no fryers on the plantation,
Right.
So, like, where did that come from?
Well, and I think deep frying things, period, is of French origin. They fried a lot of their stuff. So I mean, I don't know why that's connected to us now. Again, yeah, we didn't have like a bunch of like fryers in the South, but again, it may have been a way of just cooking everything. That was just an easier way to do it. A lot of it has to do with poverty and slavery.
True.
Yeah.
And
True,
so
true,
things
true.
growing up, we just kind of and we make stuff good. It's
Right.
just horrible stuff.
Yeah.
but
It's pig's feet, or
It's
it's
pig's
just
feet.
stuff that's like
right.
Yeah.
It's the innards of a
Yeah,
pig, and we
it's-
making it taste good. I don't know. We're crazy, but like
We're magic.
we are magic.
That's funny.
Our magic indeed.
Our magic seasoning. Which, speaking of seasoning, this is a stereotype about white people
Yeah.
that is very common. That white people don't know how to season their food. Do you find that to be true?
I don't.
You don't really cook though.
I also don't. This sounds awful, but like I. Where we live right now in Los Angeles, like I don't have the. I think of the honestly a lot of the white stuff. If you are like if you are on social media and you see like a starter pack for something, like and the white person starter pack would have a bunch of different characteristics of people that I don't really encounter day to day. Because I
Yeah.
think of them mostly as like a suburb thing, honestly.
Sure.
You could just go down a checklist for that stuff, and like that, allergic to seasoning, essentially. Like I don't see that in Los Angeles, but also like I hang out with our mutual friends,
Yeah.
who are people of color,
Yeah.
who are or they're white, but like they're just not. At least
Basic.
they could be, cut from that slice of life, but they're not practicing.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh
I
my
think
gosh,
that's a
funny.
white American stereotype because if we look at true white people,
Yeah.
Europeans, a lot of the best food comes from France and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Italy and Germany. So I'm
Yeah.
like, they don't have a problem seasoning food.
I think John will challenge you on Germany food. though.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Well,
Some-
it's fine.
it's fine.
Yeah, the stuff that I had, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, some people like, but they know how to season it. Maybe it's not my seasoning, but
Right.
but
Right,
I
right,
think we're
right.
talking about a subculture of white America
Yeah.
that doesn't season food. I don't know why. Like I don't know what. Maybe because they're used to cooking stuff out of boxes, like Hamburger Helper and macaroni and cheese and stuff like
Convenience
that.
type
Convenience,
stuff.
right?
Maybe they're saving it for date night.
Really working on
little
that
bit of
one
hot sauce on a
special
Friday.
recipe.
Right? Yeah. We don't have this every day.
Oh, but see, you put hot sauce on everything.
No, I'm the.
He
yeah.
literally, and I mean this. When I say he puts hot sauce on everything, he hasn't even tasted the food that I've cooked yet, and he's just drenching it in the hot
No,
sauce.
which hot sauce? Which one?
I'm actually, I'm open.
Really?
Yeah,
really
to a lot
is.
of them.
Because there's Crystal, the Crystal Blue one. There's the Louisiana hot sauce.
He
Louisiana's
loves
good.
Louisiana.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've gotten
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I've
I
gotten all
see. I
those.
don't get down with
I
hot
keep it
sauce
in
like
my
that.
purse.
Really?
I don't not like it, but like he loves it.
Okay.
It's my thing.
He's all about the hot sauce.
So like hot sauce on pizza.
I would.
Ooh, we don't
But
do that one. That's
Yeah,
You put it on a lot.
of stuff.
But going back to those starter pack things, because those are all stereotypes.
Yes.
Yeah,
And if
right.
you haven't seen those memes like floating on Facebook and Twitter, they're one hilarious. Two, we laugh because they're truthful.
They're yes.
Right.
every single starter pack. I mean, what are some ones that they've had?
Like the "Let me speak to your manager" starter
Yeah,
pack.
with the asymmetrical haircut,
Yeah.
the
Like
type
a
of purse that they
minivan,
have, the
right.
screaming kids that are out of control. You know those type of people. And when you look at just all types of groups, like for example, when we see, and I hate to bring up like a somber thing, but most of the time when there's a mass shooting, we know what the profile of the person
Right.
is.
Yeah, you could have that. And I probably have seen a starter pack for
For
something
yeah,
like that. Yeah.
yeah. And or for example, there's a stereotype or an assumption that like most people that are extremely homophobic are actually in the closet and gay. And that ends up happening. Like this just recently happened. One of the creators of conversion therapy that ran one of the biggest conversion therapy camps, I guess you'll call it. It sounds like a horrible word.
Franchise.
I'm kidding. I mean, it basically was though, but like he just came out 20 years later after ruining so many people's lives as gay. But it's like there's a formula to these types of people, and I
Right.
think there was even this. I think there was an article, but it basically said that like the highest percentage of people that watch like Pornhub basically are in the Bible Belt, and it's like,
Oh yeah.
of course,
For sure.
Yeah. So I think with in connecting this with stereotypes, I think a lot of people are either afraid of them or resist them because of the truth behind them. They almost want to like, no, that's not me. That's
Right.
not me. So they
Trying to
push so
fight it.
hard.
Unless
they
it's
fight
a
it, right.
positive thing.
Right.
For
You know
sure.
what I mean?
Talking about athletics, blacks, like I mean,
Right.
like, when I walk into a gym to play
Asians are
basketball,
smart.
I was gonna say, like,
I like
right.
being picked first.
Right.
Yeah, or right, no,
They'd
I
never
get it.
see me shoot.
If you were a new,
Right.
if you were a new student coming into my high school or something, it'd be like, oh, you just start thinking about the basketball team. Like, where could we need? He looks like a shooting guard.
Right.
You know, like,
I'm not gonna be
It's
mad at that.
Right.
Absolutely.
I'm not
or
gonna
like
absolutely.
someone of Asian descent that's just like, oh, well, of course he's in calculus.
Yeah.
You
right,
know?
Right.
This actually just happened on a flight back here. I was sitting with Malcolm, who I consider my little brother, and we joked about how we knew no one was going to sit in the middle seat between us because
Was it
it's
true?
too black. Nobody sat between
Yeah,
us,
right.
and even though it's a negative, it worked in our favor. But you know that people have those thoughts. Am I lying?
No.
Am I lying?
100%. I kind of would have been okay with it too. Good. No
Right.
one's sitting here. Fine. That's
It's like you are making assumptions about me. You know,
Right.
assuming
Do what you gotta
I mean,
do.
we
There
looked.
might be times when you
you
do
know.
want someone, not necessarily next to you on a flight, because that's
Right.
like not great. But
Right.
if you multiply that situation in other contexts, it's like it's gonna hit other times too.
So how do we eventually embrace these stereotypes about ourselves?
how do you break them?
Embrace them.
Embrace them. honestly, I think comedy
Why
is
do you
is
need to embrace it?
Because I just think people are
so we're
afraid
not
of
so
it. And it's like,
offended and getting people get like upset
Yeah,
about
yeah.
it. I think it's
Okay,
stupid.
yeah,
that's what I mean. Like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just we're such at a point where it's just like everything is offensive, and it's like no, like laugh about it. Like there are certain things about who we are as people that are
Yeah.
truthful and it's funny
that
and it's
makes
fine.
Karmel's like finish your sorry
Yeah,
to
with the
interrupt, but
No,
on
yeah.
comedy
I
side,
think
yeah.
comedy is the way to do that because I think again, comics hit on everybody. I think everyone should be okay with being a target because then we're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
We're all getting hit. But like, if it doesn't apply to you, just laugh at it and move on. Like I don't like
That's a very good point.
bad
Doesn't apply
credit.
to
Blacks
you.
have bad credit. I'm like, no, we all don't.
Right.
And like I don't. So if it doesn't apply, I don't have to get mad about it. I can just move on. But when people sit there and get so upset about it and offended, I'm like, if it doesn't apply to you, whatever. And if it does apply to you, if it's negative, you can change it. It doesn't
Right.
have to be your story. Or if it's not, again, just move on.
This is the role of comedy. I think is it's really interesting to me. I obviously like you watch stand up comedy growing up or something, but like I don't know if it was just over my head or something. But I feel like especially in the last few years, comedy is so much better than what I remember it being.
Yeah.
And I don't like. Is that just a symptom of the current environment or something? Where it's like, because I honestly like. Chris Rock can tell me more truth than I can hear anyone else, or,
Yeah,
or Bill Burr or
yeah.
Dave, any of these people. It's just like it's insightful commentary. I think that like everyone else is just gun shy or
Yeah.
something.
I think a lot of it is accessibility. Because like
Yeah.
back in the day, we didn't have
Yeah.
1,000 channels to
For
see
sure.
1,000. We had CBS with Bob Hope or
Right.
George Burns, and that was it. Like no one knew about Dick Gregory and the stuff he talked about
Right.
back then. And then I think like George Carlin, maybe the next guy that, came
Right.
out, that was kind of the woke
Yeah.
comedian. Now we have a plethora of platforms for them to speak on, so we see more of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I honestly, I know people will look at Richard Pryor as being like probably the greatest. I was never really a fan of Richard Pryor.
Yeah.
I mean, he was before my time, but going back and looking at it, it was okay. It wasn't my type of humor.
Right.
So I look at how did I miss some of the guys back then? Like I said, like a Dick Gregory, George Carlin, and now looking at Bill Burr's and Dave Chappelle's, the things they're saying, I'm like, why aren't we talking about this before?
I
Like,
know.
why is it so prevalent now?
So do you think it's accessibility, or do you think there's just more source material now?
I would imagine the material is about the same. I mean,
Yeah,
racism
who
and
knows?
sexism
I
and
mean,
like.
I'm right.
I ain't got no
I
money.
wouldn't think that it changed, but some people might just think there's more material. I mean, like for example, Dave Chappelle went in on example like the transgender community. It's more of a thing now than it was back then,
Right.
for sure.
But I feel like if you're
Yeah,
Dave
that's
Chappelle,
true.
if it's not transgender, it's something else that will just pop on the scene.
Sure, and that's this special. Before
Yeah.
it was something else. So I think yeah, there wasn't an LGBTQIA community back in the '60s and '70s. They were just they didn't have
There's
their
not
own.
as
Yeah.
they didn't
Right.
have as loud of a voice.
Exactly. But then again, it's because there wasn't that many platforms. So now, again, it's also like because there's more places for them to speak about, it's more targets for a comedian. Now, okay, you're out. I'm going
True.
to talk about you now. You're coming out. Okay, I can talk about you.
Yeah.
So that's why I get upset with these groups who get mad that they're targets when you are making yourself a target. You want us to see you. Oh, I see you now.
Right.
Well, I'm going to talk about you. So, like, if you don't want to be seen, stay down.
That's a very good point. I mean, it's the same with like feminists and women's rights groups and everything. I mean, there's always been fight for women's rights, but now it's like this weird shift that's like
Yeah.
they're really loud now too. And so, Bill Burr, he goes in on them all the time.
Do you think also this is, I don't want to get too far afield, but the ability to just, if I'm a part of one of these groups, if I'm a woman and I'm a feminist and this is who I am, and I do make myself heard through Twitter or something, like I can just go in there and like speak my piece and just go off on someone and then just shut it down. I don't have to respond to anything.
No, you're right. You're right. But they do. They do, and that's like I've gotten in several arguments with people on different things, and they're like, "Well, I will never forget this guy told me I'm just saying what I feel." I'm like,
Right.
on social media,
Right.
social media,
Yes.
like you didn't have to respond to me.
Right.
Right.
You also didn't have to post it, but this is what's supposed to happen here. It's like the bottom says comment, and
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
commenting. Like that's what I'm supposed to do. So what are you getting mad for? Like I don't understand. Like you-
Because your comment isn't in agreement with what they're
Exactly.
saying.
Right.
That's why.
yeah.
People never want you to disagree with them
Right.
on social media. And the minute you do, it's like all hell breaks loose.
What are you doing? This is my page. Actually,
Believe
not your
me,
page.
I
So,
know.
like, honestly,
you do.
you of
Yes.
all people
All
know.
people
Yes,
know.
you do.
I mean, if I put one foot out of line with anybody, Lord have mercy, they'll start talking about my hopes, my dreams, my family,
Right.
my dog. It's like, geez.
So was all of this just like one, be mature, don't be an asshole, like just speak, converse, because like that's how do we embrace stereotypes, or like how do we just not get so prickly?
Yeah.
It's just like, is that just like just chill out?
Yeah, but I think, and I say this all the time, I say this about racism, I say this just about life experience. I just think surround yourself with other people and people
Yeah.
that aren't like you
right.
and other cultures and stuff, because like the stereotypes are created because I think there is a majority. Like if you were to do some sort of survey with black people, let's say about fried chicken, it'd probably be like 80-20. 80%
Yeah,
of people like
easily.
fried chicken.
Yeah.
There's going to
So-
be the little lonely
right.
vegan by themselves, me, and then a couple other people
Yeah.
that don't, So that's why people can make that assumption. But hang out with that 20% so that you
Well,
can get a different
right.
perspective.
I guess
you
so.
know?
This is like my theory on all this stuff is like it's honestly it's just as as human beings, probably at any stage in our lives, we have so much information thrown at us. And so you look for shortcuts. You look for rules of
Amen to
thumb.
that.
So like
That is
in this
true.
sense, it is like, it's the same. I could look at the clouds and be like, well, yeah, that's probably going to be rain. It's like,
Yeah.
is it actually going to be rain every time? It's like, no, but it's helpful because, 80% of the time it's going to rain from this.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bring an umbrella.
That's a good point.
So in that sense, and it's honestly, it's just from having imperfect information. You are not going to, if Karmel tells me, of 30 movies I know he's loved or hated or something, and then I see something, it's like, Karmel, you probably won't like this. That's taking the time to do all of that stuff, but like I won't know how he's going to react to that.
Right.
There's
Right.
just no way to do any of that.
Right,
So
right,
like
right.
in the world of imperfect information, you come up with these rules of thumb, which are stereotypes, and that's like,
Yeah.
and that's like, and like when it hits, it's like,
it makes
oh
it
yeah,
easier.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can distill people down into like little postcards for stuff.
Yeah.
And it's honestly there are some benefits to having rules of thumb like that, because like it's again like that, let me speak to your manager. If you see someone in that haircut or something, it's like, well, like who would choose that one if you don't have like a chip on your shoulder or something, you know, or like,
my
or
gosh.
you,
Yeah.
or in this certain, you don't have time to do your hair, right? Like I get that stuff. There's certain stuff where that's helpful, and other times like when people don't know why that's helpful. For instance, like they've done studies about like if you actually if you grow up regardless of socioeconomic status or anything else, like if you grow up within, you know, like 2 blocks of like an institution of higher learning, your chances of like, you know, attaining greater achievement in the in education in your life are like much better.
higher, yeah.
And it's just an odd, it's like, well, I don't know why that's that. But like it's a rule of thumb. Is it always going to happen for little Timmy? Like no, he
Probably
could
not,
flunk
yeah.
out or whatever, but like if it's true 80% of the time, that's how it is.
Right.
Yeah, and that should be okay.
Right.
That should be okay. So when it's not, don't get mad. I just don't understand why we get mad about it when it doesn't work. Because yeah, 80% of the time, okay, it makes sense. Like, and you talk about imperfect information. I think that's where I know like an older generation who are now stuck in this social media era, but still kind of have the old ideas
Yeah.
of growing up in the 70s and 60s
Yeah.
and
So,
like those thoughts.
Honestly, that's one thing. So another thing about just assuming things is having that be reinforced. Because there's a time like where if I'm a comedian and I'm playing on a stereotype or something, and I say like, oh, you know, I don't know, white people, you know, they're way too tall or something, but like it's whatever time in the
They don't
future where it's
use
just like we're
lotion.
not tall, like it doesn't, you know, like that's not funny, it's
Right.
it's not accurate, so like
Yeah.
you can grow out of that stuff. But it's also, I think, because of the prevalence of if everyone adheres to that 80-20 rule of like this stereotype's true 80% of the time, then even when it's kind of not true, you have the kind of the older generation and now who still reinforce that. And then when that's in like the bad stuff, right? Which is like, okay, this is a person of color. If I see them on the news, it's probably for a bad reason, you know? And in that sense, like that, what role does that play to reinforce it? Because it makes it seem it's an availability bias, right? Saying like, well, it must be true because I see it on there, and that's exactly what I thought it was.
Right.
You know, it's like, but that's actually not the case. But you guys are reinforcing it, and that's again when someone pops up on Twitter, it's like I can do all this stuff. It's like, and you go to the loudest voice in the room, which is usually people who have a loud voice aren't saying nice things.
At all.
No,
Trust me.
rarely.
Well, I'm loud. but
Rarely.
When you're talking about like when you see a black person on the news, for example,
Right.
it's probably for a bad reason. It's like, well, they want to keep those stereotypes going. They
Right.
don't
Yeah.
want to change the
No,
narrative.
no,
They don't want to change it at all.
And
Right.
I've had this conversation with my mom, who comes from that older generation, about this, and she's like, "Well, why would they care? It's media. You're obviously getting worked up about it. There's an agenda behind everything you see on there."
Absolutely.
And I think I mentioned this on the podcast before about how she was talking about Russians, and like, when have you encountered a
Those
Russian?
shifty Russians.
Right?
Right.
Oh
Like,
my
how
God.
do you have an opinion?
You know what they say
them?
about Russians.
Yeah, it's like, how do you have an opinion on this?
Yeah, like, what are you talking about? And
Oh
she
my
was
gosh.
going off about Russians because of what was on the news.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
can you actually experience one first before you have this whole
Right.
mentality about who they are and what they're doing? I'm like, Mom, it's the news. This is still entertainment. I get you feel like this is truthful, but it's showing you this for a reason. It's creating some kind of emotional response from you because they want something. So just think about the people you've actually experienced and go off based on those reactions. We talked about, you mentioned Arabs and Muslims. And my mom was saying the same thing. You got to be careful about Arabs and Muslims. And I asked her, have you actually experienced an Arab or a Muslim? And she goes, yes. I remember I actually worked with a girl at this hospital I was at for a few years. She was the nicest person. I'm
Right.
like,
You're like,
then what are you talking
so-
about?
Yeah.
I'm like, exactly.
Right.
But you're going based off the media and this, again, caricature of one incident that
Yeah.
happened that may be connected to possible the Arabs that you may have not even
Right.
mentioned in your whole life before. And the one person you've actually been around
Right.
Yeah.
was
So
the opposite.
Yep,
it's
yep.
it's bridging that gap between, you know, imperfect information and learning more about the person. It's the same thing, honestly, when you have a family who's traditionally like, you know, they don't support gay people or something.
Right.
But then, you know, lo and behold, there's a good chunk of people who are in the population who are gay,
Right.
right? It's just, it's how things have been
just the
throughout
way life
time.
is, yeah.
You're going to get one in your family.
Yes.
And then when they do, it's like, well, I mean, yeah, I don't like gay people, but like, Amy, she's nice.
She's
you know,
alright.
like
Yeah.
this is fine. Like I get it.
Her girlfriend's different. Like,
Right. It's a.
like,
It's an
okay.
odd. So like I.
But
I'm-
that's how a lot of people respond in general to races. Like so many times growing up, like, oh, you're not like those other black people.
Right.
Like, what does
Like,
that
Right,
mean?
And who
what?
do you know?
And who do you know?
Right.
That's what you know.
Yeah.
And so that is
I knew a
completely-
Russian black person.
which I've never seen or heard of.
A Russian black
A
person.
Russian black. I need to find this.
um.
I'm interested because I feel like I've seen black people in a lot of different
Right.
from a lot of different countries, but a black
But
Russian.
how many Russians do you see?
I've had experience with a few in my life.
Yeah.
All been pleasant.
Right.
Growing up, but
Great
all been
people.
pleasant. All great people.
Wonderful
But
people, great
growing
people.
up, our gospel pianist at our church was a Russian man. He
You said
just had-
pianist.
Pianist.
Thank you.
That's what I said.
Okay.
was
If it
close.
sounded
When
like
you-
something
yeah.
else, sorry.
It was close.
Our piano player
Yeah.
at church, he was Russian and he just had a passion for gospel music. And he
Right.
was one of the best gospel piano players I've ever heard
Yeah.
in my life. Great experience. Lovely man.
Right.
You know,
Russian,
but then, you have the stereotype of like Russian dance teachers that are just evil. And
Yeah.
then you see that on TV and you know what I mean? They
Right.
exist.
Yeah.
They're not all like that.
And
but yeah.
again, look at what's the entree to this stuff is. Well, and I saw on a TV show that. it's this
Exactly. And
person.
Right.
the media
Yeah.
and television and entertainment, they
Right.
influence so much of our opinions.
Right.
And now that's social media. And now when people
Yes.
go to Facebook and see a link to a picture of a post, and that's
Yeah.
a complete satirical site, and think it's true.
I think it's true.
Right.
They don't do the
I'm
research
like,
or go
can
out
you
and have
just look
experiences
at the
of their
link
own.
itself? I don't get how people don't look at the link and see this is not a real website. But and then people are commenting about the thing they're
Right.
seeing on there. I'm like, you guys, this is
And
not
just
real.
they take it so
I
seriously.
love it when people there are threads or like subreddits or other things devoted to people commenting on Onion articles as if they're real.
those
my
are
favorite.
your favorite,
They're
and
just
they
great.
get like
Yeah.
outraged
Right.
Yeah.
about some of this stuff, and
Right.
I'm like, yo,
So-
you know, this
Writing
is
my
a fake
senator
site,
for-
right? Like, where
Right.
have you been?
Like a thing.
Where
Do
have
that.
you been?
Please do that.
I don't know if you guys know of this man named Daryl Davis. Have you heard of him?
No.
He did this
Pretty
documentary.
generic name.
Now,
think I went to middle school with him.
He was in fourth when I was
Oh,
in fifth.
Daryl.
Daryl, yeah. You know Daryl Davis.
you guys.
Played for the Mets in '83.
He was a pianist
sure-
at my church. We know the same Daryl.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Anyway,
Okay,
Daryl Davis is
okay.
a black man. He's a musician. He's from the South. And he did this documentary where he went and met with members of the Ku Klux Klan
Ooh.
Yeah.
because none of them had ever met a black person in their life.
Is this the guy who befriended?
Yes.
Oh my God, that guy's he's a hero.
He's a hero.
Yeah, it's
And
like
he changed
dozens of
so many
yeah.
minds because they were like, I had no idea.
right.
Wow.
They had all of these perceptions and assumptions based on stereotypes and based on things that they've seen of black people. And so he went and he would ask them one simple question: how can you hate me when you don't know me? And they couldn't answer it. They couldn't answer it. You should watch this. It's incredible. It's all on YouTube. But I think when things like that happen more often, then we might be okay in this world.
Not to bring up
Yeah.
like super current stuff.
Yeah,
but
please
there's a
do.
video of this woman in Eagle Rock, which is kind of a a hippie community in Los Angeles.
Too current.
Too current, right? She's
But
in a
yeah.
CVS, and she was like, she didn't. It was a tirade, but it also looked like a tantrum.
Yeah.
Of her saying how much she disliked people of color.
Yeah.
But Malynda went up, or she didn't. Well, no, I was asking Malynda, and she was like, Melinda's like, what happened to you?
Like,
How do you hate someone like that? Doesn't make
but like, it was just there was venom inside
Right,
of
yeah,
her. Like,
yeah.
how did it get so deep rooted that you hate?
who do you know?
What happened to you? Yeah, and so it's just like if her whole life experience is based on one bad experience, and now she hates all people of color because of that one person. Well, first of all, that one person, whatever you did,
Right.
like, why didn't you just apologize? But also, like, how did you let it get to this point? Like, it was a serious. You saw the video.
Oh, yeah,
It
yeah.
was a serious level of hate. But I'm just surprised. Like, what is it based off of? What happened to you?
And what I hate sometimes is, and you kind of mentioned this, John, about when you have the stereotype or there's preconceived notion, and then something happened that confirms it.
Yeah.
And that so this woman could have had an idea about black folks her whole life, and let's say that day a black person did something very, very probably to any of us very minute, Not a big deal, but to her, it's
Bumped
huge.
into her.
Bumped
Right.
into her.
Didn't
it
offer
knocks
her
him-
Kool-Aid.
Right.
Oh my god.
This is
You never
mine.
any Kool-Aid. Stole the last. She was at Bonds, and he stole the last packet.
Right.
God dang it! Whatever it was.
I knew I didn't like
I
you
hate
people.
you guys. I can't have my lunch party now. And that's it. And then
That's all it
this
took.
tirade from hers gets blown up.
Right.
Now we see this person going off, and it kind of just continues this cycle of like, okay, you don't like us. When things could be going well, things could be getting better.
Yeah.
You know, our president isn't helping, but whatever. But things could be getting better. And then something like this happens that just brings it all back again.
I have a question.
Hopefully
So-
we have an answer.
Right. So it's with, and this is me being a white person speaking to people of color, but
I use a wave cap. That's what it is.
thank you.
That's my waves. Right?
I wonder how those edges get so. So we talked about this woman's like, well, what happened to you, right? Or like if you had one awful experience, like grow up, right?
Right.
Or just like be a fully functioning, thinking, questioning adult. As a person of color, if you have had awful experiences, you've heard it from your parents, and then you're from the South or something, and you had bad experiences with white people. Is it any different if you just take that as you're always on guard?
It's a very good question, and I'm gonna speak at least from seeing my father as I grew up. He grew up in Mississippi, and I never understood why he harbored such anger, and I don't want to say hate, but just such anger and I guess reticence of white people until I got older. And then he finally opened up a lot of his stories, and I'm like, I completely get it. Like, why would you trust that race of people? You've seen people get lynched. You've seen people get beaten up. You couldn't drink from a water fountain. You had to sit the back of the bus. So when you have those type of experiences, and the people that put you in that experience are white people, I personally cannot blame, especially older black people, for feeling that way.
Yeah.
Like, granted, we know that there's obviously white people that aren't like that. Hello, I married one,
Right.
but I can't blame people, especially people from my dad's generation, for having those feelings. You can't,
But
because
I
that is
get
their
that
life experience.
you don't blame them, but do you think there's work that they could do? Like, or would you advocate that? You know what I mean? Obviously, your dad was fine with me marrying you, right? So,
I
like,
mean,
it's not
yeah.
like I get that there's.
Right.
It could just be, I
But
don't
see,
like
to
white people,
him,
but
you're
this
an
guy-
exception.
Right? Yeah.
right.
You know what I
I'm
mean?
the gay person in an extended
Right.
family that's like, John's okay.
John's okay.
Right.
Those other guys.
Yeah.
I
But
mean,
see, and that's funny because like my mom grew up in Oklahoma and Texas, and so very much a lot of racism down there. And when she came over here, like I kind of grew up with just the thought, okay, here's this, here's how we act, here's how we move, here's how we do that. And we had several situations where we still got accosted by white folks. I remember, never forget being arrested or detained at an Albertsons when I was like 4 or 5, and they thought my mom was robbing the joint. I'm like, dang, she's robbing the whole Albertsons? Like,
Right.
by herself? Just got off work.
Right.
And the other day, she mentioned, hey, can you go to the store and get some, I forget what it was, something. And she mentioned this Albertsons. And I'm like, you want me to go to that Albertsons? She didn't remember. She forgot.
Really?
I have never forgot that.
I would never forget
I
that.
would never, right? So
Right.
for her, she's just dealt with this so much. To her, that was just like another.
Yeah, it's par for the course. This
Right.
is just.
Wow.
And it's so, even to this day, I remember sitting in the back of our car, police sirens, I could see the lights, I saw the cops walking by. So I didn't even see what was going on. I
Right.
just remember being in the car. And to her, she's like, hey, can you go get some milk from the store? I'm like, what? From that Albertsons? I ain't going to
That's
that
the
Albertsons.
most
Wow.
telling thing.
Yeah.
See, there's a level of PTSD I think that people don't realize that.
Yeah,
people of
right.
color
You have
have.
so many brushes with death. They're
Yeah.
like, well, what's? I'm not gonna, I'm still gonna sleep tonight.
Yeah. It's like, whatever. What am I going to do about it?
And I think one of the issues I have, and this is a stereotype that I'm making about white people, but I feel like white people are so quick to lump one person and make them the representative of an entire group. But if any person of color does that about white people, it's always an isolated incident. And we
Yeah.
shouldn't be stereotyping white people based on those situations. And I don't, like, I'm stereotyping white people by saying that they do that, but they do it.
They do.
It's a very hypocritical stance to take, but I see it with everything.
Yeah, I don't know what. I mean, is that too much to ask that you just give us the same amount of treatment? Like,
Yes, it
we
is
look
too
at
much
each.
to ask. We've been asking for the same treatment for I don't know
I
how
don't-
long. Like,
right.
Yeah, what was I thinking?
like,
The
Karmel,
statement Black Lives Matter became controversial.
like,
You know what I mean?
Right.
That's
just,
that's
like-
the same amount of treatment. It's not
Right.
even the same. It's like it's starting.
we just want to matter.
Right.
It's
Right.
like what Michael
We
Chase
just-
said. He's like, that's where it's starting.
Right,
We just
yeah,
want to
yeah.
matter. We're not asking for anything
Right.
else. We just want to matter, and
Right.
that was a problem.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, do you agree with that?
I
Do you
don't-
think there's
I
a level of
mean-
hypocrisy with that?
I can't speak to white people specifically,
I'm
even though I
lumping you
am
all
right.
together, making you the
Right.
representative.
Yeah. No. Exactly. That's okay. Touche. I think it's what people do in general. I could again. You could think of the most mundane argument. It's like, and you could call me out for being hypocritical, because I'm failing to do the exact same thing that I'm telling you to do. You're like, why didn't you, I don't know, pick up after yourself? Well, I was in a rush, or I wasn't feeling well. It's like, well, why is there an exception there? Like that doesn't. If you're gonna make it apply, make it apply. What I'm saying is like it's an easy thing. It's just looking for. It's dodging. How do you dodge a charge? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So, like, what about like stereotypes that aren't as, I guess, for example, Polish people are stupid. I've never understood that.
I've never heard that.
I haven't heard that either.
Polish, because
That country's been through so much. I
Yeah,
wouldn't
You
load
wouldn't
them
even touch
down.
it.
with
I
more
know I've
stuff.
always heard like there's a what do you call it? A gag gift in Spencer's, like a Polish puzzle.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
one piece.
Yeah. So
Oh no.
Yeah, I've always
There's-
seen this gag about Polish people being dumb. I'm like,
Interesting.
Like, where
right.
did that
No,
come from?
it's a really interesting. Different parts of the country of our country, and also just different parts of the world, and at different times. I'm sure there's a book or several books that are can explain or just lay this out honestly for like amusement's sake, because we are also living in our time where we have certain things that like we think are stereotypes, and
Yeah.
like in 100 years, or if anyone is still around, they'll look back and like, oh my God, people thought this of people,
Right.
of these
Yeah.
particular people. So like there was a whole stereotype around Danish people back in the day, like when when New York was like essentially like New Amsterdam, right? But like, you ever heard like going Dutch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Or that comes from that, which is just like Danish people were really, really stingy. Yeah. Or like things that they made, you couldn't trust them, you couldn't work right. There was a whole bunch of phrases related to that.
Now I'm like curious about other phrases that are like that, and I want to like look at the origins of it and
Like
how
get- like
it came
getting
from a
gypped.
stereotype.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yes.
There's another one.
Yes, yes.
It's in every
Or Indian giver.
Right. Yeah.
Those stuff,
Isn't
yeah.
that this stuff to me is fascinating? And like, I mean, obviously, we probably should retire those expressions
For sure. For
but
sure.
like, but like, if I say like, hey, like, or if you talk about a date you went on, it's like, oh yeah, we went Dutch. Like, that's not negative in any sense. But
Yeah.
like at one point, it completely
was a negative thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
It's an interesting the Polish people specifically. There's like in Los Angeles,
Is
I
there a
don't
Polish
know
community in
if
Los Angeles?
I'm sure there are, because there's
There's, yeah,
there's
little
so many
pockets of
people, but
everything,
like in Chicago there certainly is a
Yes,
Polish
yes,
community,
yes,
and
yes,
it's like,
yes.
and you have people probably think of Polish people in Chicago a lot differently than people think about Polish people in other parts of the country.
For sure.
And everyone has their own, like, for like everyone has their own. And I'll just stop there.
Yeah.
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 Because I know another term that people don't use because they know it's offensive but don't know why. It's calling Asians Oriental.
Yeah.
And like I was explaining this to someone the other day, like the word Orient just means like a basis, a place of orient, like where you orient yourself. And they're like, well, why is that offensive to Orientals? Well, one, it's not an ethnic designation. It just means actually where trade started. They consider the Orient, that's where trade was silk and the Silk Road and all that stuff. So it's basically making them a commodity. They're
Right.
like a business.
Ah.
So that's I'm
not
basing
people.
I'm not people, exactly. And they're
Gotcha.
like, oh my God, I've never heard of that. Like, well, because we stopped using it, one,
Right.
but then no one actually talks about the history now that it's gone. But like, there's so many things in our history in terms we just use, like no big deal. Whatever. And my mom still says Oriental rugs, so she can't help it. It is what it is.
Right.
But like, there's so many terms like that that start from somewhere that are stereotypes and are negative, but then eventually we just kind of put them in our lexicon and just keep using them. So,
Indians.
Well, yeah, they're
that's-
not
Like, which one are you
Indians.
talking about? It's
I
like, well,
can't-
are you
It's the
like,
worst one ever. I can't stand it.
I know.
right? Yeah.
It's like they're Native American.
Yeah.
The
Actually,
Indians are
and-
from India.
Actually, and then real Indians
Yeah.
are not Indian.
What are they?
Nah, the actual country is called Bharat, not India. If you
Okay.
ask Indians, sorry to say Indians, from India, the official name of the country is Bharat. India.
Was it a country then?
Yeah. So India is a British term. They named
Right.
it that
Yeah.
after the Indus
It was a
River.
colony.
Right.
Mm.
It was a British colony, but the real name is Bharat. So even the real Indians are called Indian.
Right.
But that's what they call themselves
That's
now.
because they have no choice.
Right.
The Brits came through like, you're Indian.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
okay. all right,
Well,
we're
to bring
Indian.
this full circle with the weeks and whatnot, it's like, well, our measure of everything, our measure of, ask anyone around the world what year it is.
Yeah.
It's a Western thing. It's like, no, this is this year. it's 2019. This is,
Yeah.
yeah, deal with it.
Yep.
Deal with it. Well, I want to end on a happy note. So,
Okay.
what is one of your
Don't judge people.
Well, yes, don't judge people. But we're gonna judge people right now. What is one of your favorite stereotypes that you've ever heard? And it could be about yourself or a different group. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Oh, favorite stereotype.
That it's kind of funny. You're like, it is kind of true, actually. Like, it just is.
So for me, I often get I don't speak black.
Mm,
I don't sound
Yeah.
black.
whatever that means.
Whatever that means.
Which I did a whole blog on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I kind of like it. I think it's cool because I don't want to sound whatever you determine to be black. I want to sound like me. I want to sound like Karmel. And I grew up in Compton. That's if that's you want hood or whatever. I grew up in the hood, but I think I also just hung around a lot of people that were different, that spoke different. Like I speak pretty good Spanish. I'm working on speaking Arabic. I've been around a lot of Asian folks, so I have other like senses of like the way people sound and different cadences to determine how I sound. So to me, that just sounds like I'm a well-rounded person. Like sounding black sounds like I only associate with black people. So I'll take it.
Okay, John.
I have a question though. Like, if you, this is just like, I'm not even thinking this through, but like, you like the fact that you don't sound black, or like, you know,
Whatever
What
that is.
people
that's something.
think
But
black
like,
is.
is even liking that, like, I like that that doesn't apply to me. Does that just reinforce that, you know, like, it doesn't apply to me, which means I acknowledge the existence of it
Yeah,
in general?
I do. I acknowledge. Yeah, I know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
I know what the sound is. I've been around it, so I get
Right.
it. But yeah, and I don't sound like that. So yeah, even if I reinforce it, if I don't, it's still there.
Right.
So I mean, I'm not gonna put like it's not
But
there.
I just think with that, people think that there is only, well, because we're talking about the 80-20 thing, people think there is only one type of black person.
Yeah.
And that's incorrect. There are many types of
There are
black
two.
people. There are two.
But what if someone sounds Jamaican?
my
Like there's a
God.
definite
It's an entirely
Jamaican
different-
sound, right?
And they're
Yeah.
still black.
And they're still black.
Yeah. I just think people don't really say that about white people.
What?
Like the differences in white people. Like
What do you mean?
You don't sound.
as far as like, well, like you don't sound like you're from the South.
Oh, right.
So they'll give
Yeah,
it
yeah,
that, like, oh, you sound like you're from
Yeah.
California, or you have a Boston accent. But like with black people, it's just, oh, you don't sound black.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's like there's only one
Yep.
dialect that black
Yep.
people are allowed to speak, and that
Yeah.
is assigned to them, and that is just so false.
Yeah. I agree.
Maybe we should start that then. Like you just say, you don't have a Boston accent or from the South. Maybe we should just consider different black accents. I don't have a hood accent.
I mean, we should.
But like, what's a hood then? You know what I mean? I
What's a-
get it.
we
you
can
know
give
what
it
I
a
mean? But,
region.
like,
There's a
it's
region that is the hood, though. That's
But like,
actually a thing.
right, I get it. But like, it's it's an interesting. Well, because like, it's oh wow, a Boston accent. Where's that? Geographically, it's in Boston, right?
You
but
just
like,
sounded
there's
Boston.
You
when
just sound
said-
Boston,
But you
yeah.
went Boston.
Yeah, it's in
but
Boston.
there's a hood, you know, in LA. There's one in, you know, I don't know, probably Denver.
Obviously
Like all of the,
Chicago.
it's not a geographical thing. If it's not geographical, then it's a cultural thing.
I've never been more interested to know what a hood in Denver looks like.
Yeah, I'm really that's visually. I'm like,
I know.
okay, let me
What-
think,
what's
let me
cold?
think about.
It's,
What's a hood in Denver look
stay
like? They're
warm
like,
out there.
it's not worth it. Let's go home.
Right? No,
That's funny.
Favorite stereotype that you've
don't
heard
know.
about
I
white
don't-
people?
I,
What's one of your favorite starter packs that you saw?
I'd have to think about it. Actually, I saw one about like someone like in middle school, the kid who like knows all the answers and doesn't talk to people. And his little like his binder and his like the specific kind of shoes. Like I know this kid.
You know that kid.
And it's like you could go to the school in Santa Barbara, in Compton, in Topeka, Kansas. Like
Yeah.
it's that kid.
It's that kid. Yeah.
I think I'm gonna reference the starter pack too, but it's like I don't remember what exactly it was, but it was like the white kid that listens to rap music,
Yeah.
and it's the shorts, the shoes,
It has to be a jersey.
the hat,
Yeah.
the drink that they have, and like the I don't. There was like at the time I think a CD or whatever, but it's
Yeah.
like that is exactly what that kid looks like.
Yeah.
I guess so. It's. I know that we're wrapping this up, but like the kid that I mentioned in middle school, or the kid you mentioned who was
Yeah.
like listening to rap music back in the day. Like you didn't have internet then. Like how do you know that kid?
Yeah.
In Santa Barbara with the same kid that I went to school with.
And
That's
what,
Yes.
but that's what goes back to when I said I feel like there's like formulaic. Some things are in our DNA or
right.
something.
You
It's
were like
very
Yes.
people who were black and they grew up in like in different parts of the world are like I had this too. It's like
we all use
how?
toothbrushes with gel to put our edges down. Like why do we all use?
I can
That's
relate to that.
crazy.
Did you say you could relate to? I hate you.
No, I didn't say
I
that.
can't stand you. But like, yeah, those. I
Yeah.
know the kid you're talking about in middle school. I can see
odd?
him right now. You know the kid. You know the kid that
100%.
listened to hip hop music.
We
Yes.
talked about this before. This is awful. But
Uh-oh.
like there was a rumor that went around about Marilyn Manson.
Oh yeah,
And
Oh.
that he had his ribs removed so he could
yeah.
pleasure himself.
But like that
you
was
hear that rumor?
That was
No.
You didn't hear
oh
that
wow,
rumor?
you're the first person I met who didn't
That-
hear that.
yeah.
So-
This was pre-internet.
This is
So
pre-internet.
I don't know how this stuff just spread.
But
People
he
were
in Topeka, Kansas heard it. I in Santa Barbara, California heard
Right.
it. Pre-internet, and it
Wow.
wasn't on the news.
right.
So
Yeah,
like,
it
how
can't
did we
be.
all?
That's crazy.
I
So
turned
how did
on
we
Fox
all?
and looked.
How did we all find that out?
Yeah, it's an odd.
Yeah, I know
yeah, I didn't
literally
hear
has
that.
nothing to
That
do
wouldn't
with
have
it.
It's a game of
But
telephone.
it's just how in different, even growing up in different areas. Like
The only
there's
rumor about him I
similarities.
remember was that he was a kid from Mr. Belvedere.
Oh.
Not Mr.
The old-
Belvedere.
the
Was
old
he-
Wonder
no,
Years.
Wonder
No.
Years.
The older brother on Mr.
No,
Belvedere.
there was the rumor that he was the kid in.
He was Paul from Wonder
from
Years.
Wonder Years.
Which is just so funny to
No,
me.
I
Yeah.
thought it was Mr. Belvedere.
No, but I loved Mr. Belvedere.
That was a show right there.
I don't know
That
what
was
Mr.
the show.
Belvedere was.
What?
You didn't watch Mr. Belvedere?
Oh man.
Don't get Malynda started on
Don't-
things
I-
I didn't watch.
We're gonna be here for a whole nother podcast to talk about all the shows that this man has not
Oh,
watched, and he
no.
won't watch them with me because he's like, the time has passed. I'm like, the time has not passed.
No,
It's
There's
never
a
too late."
starter kit for me.
I do
don't
have a
know what
starter
it
kit.
would
It's filled with shows you haven't seen.
Mr. Belvedere's evergreen.
This is one of my favorite podcasts. This was a good discussion. I
was
like
okay.
it. Stop it. My husband, ladies and gentlemen. Please make sure you subscribe, like, comment, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Subscribe on YouTube. We are on iHeartRadio now. We are on Spotify.
Look at that.
I know. We're on iTunes Podcast. We're on Stitcher. We're on Tune Us In. We're out here, y'all.
in.
And we need to talk. So join us every Monday and make sure you let us know
Great
what
start
your
to the
thoughts. I can't believe he just said that. He's a great start to the week. Second day, yes. Great start to your work week.
Yes.
But let us know what you think and join in on this conversation on stereotypes. And we will talk to you next week.
Peace.
Bye.
And this episode of We Need to Talk is brought to you by Black Brew, the darkest, richest, boldest coffee anywhere.